get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
No, it's Thursday, August 13th. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers. Good morning with the People's Pundit. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. You guys can follow me right there on Twitter if you don't already, at Peoples_Pundit. All right. Some well-needed jolts from jobs data today. We're going to talk about that. Let's start out with that. And then we're going to talk about what was obviously predictable. It's just funny. It's just really funny. It's predictable it was going to happen, but it's more funny than I thought it was going to be, which is, of course, the media running handicapping coverage of Kamala Harris. So there's clearly been, as I read to you the memo the other day, it's just starting. I mean, it's like verbatim on those bullet points, isn't it? And there's a few things that you cannot do when you're covering Kamala Harris. Otherwise, they're out for blood. They will get you for it. I'm already laughing because maybe you guys saw some of this, maybe you didn't, but it's been a hoot in the last 48 hours. We're going to play some clips, but first and foremost, really, this jobs data was important, folks. It was, shocker. What has it been? We started this show right before the pandemic, right? Right before the pandemic. And it was right before the pandemic response. Well, not before the pandemic, but before the response. Right in the heat of the debate over whether or not it was a smart idea to shut down the economy, what was good and bad about the CARES Act. If you've been with me this whole time, or you have gone back and you have watched these episodes, folks, you know damn well that the first advice that I ever gave you or ever gave policymakers was not to shut this thing down. And then if you're going to do the CARES Act, that provision in the CARES Act was going to kill jobless claims data. It was going to ensure long-term, or at least in the midterm, unemployment, and that claims were going to be persistently high because of the provision in the CARES Act. We're not 1 week into the expiration of that provision, and we get a jolt to the jobs data. And this is important. Let's run over this real quick, okay? And then we'll laugh at some coverage of Kamala Harris. Okay. All right. So first and foremost, jobless claims this week, they fell significantly. to 963,000 for the week ending August 8th. That is beating the forecast. The media coverage of this is almost as bad as the media coverage of Kamala Harris. But the insured unemployment rate now has dived significantly for the second week in a row. It's down now to 10.6. In the first report, that has been under 1 million new initial jobless claims. That's what initial means. First time claim. It's been under 1 million since the start of the pandemic response, okay? It's like 18 weeks or something, 5 months almost, 5 whole months. The U.S. Labor Department reported initial jobless claims fell significantly to 963,000 for the week ending August 8th, a decrease of 228,000. That's an important number. The previous week was upwardly revised by just 5,000, from 1,186,000 to 1,191,000. There's been some small revisions, but then in that week where we started, those few weeks where we started to see a little bit of a bump up, there was some bigger revisions, started scaring the hell out of me a little bit. No bueno, no bueno. So I like to see these tiny little, as a percentage of overall claim, revisions again. I like that. It tells me that we're generally on the money last time and we're not going to get any crazy surprises. Forecasts range from a low of 1,050,000 to a high of 1,220,000. The consensus was 1,150,000. So coming in, folks, at 963 is way below the consensus forecast. It is below the low end of the forecast range. And for those who are just tuning in to Inside the Numbers, you don't watch it, you don't know how we do things at People Spend It Daily. We don't give a single forecast like the Wall Street Journal or Reuters or others, Fox Business, who take others. We give a consensus. We get it from different, we'll take theirs too. But we get them from economic analysis, Wall Street analysts, from big firms, and we mash them together in what is a giant consensus. And that is how we come to our consensus forecast. All right. So it gives us, it's like polling. It's like what RCP does with public opinion polls. Is it better to give you an average, or is it better to give you one that you've been using, whether it's been right or wrong? It's better to give you an average. And that's essentially what we do here. This week marks the first week after 18 straight weeks since the start of the pandemic in which jobless claims fell below 1 million. Here's the overall trend in the series. All right, you guys know how that goes. Here's the year, the 1 year, and I'd like to look at the year-to-date year too. Why? Here we go. Why does this matter? You see the initial claims, 210, 212 for the 4-week average, very low twos, very significant. In the Obama administration, we were always kind of like, we were never that low. And even under the Trump administration, we have fallen below the 200,000 threshold multiple times. And we would see under Obama, jobless claims go back up around that 300,000 mark, which is that is the threshold for a tight labor market. So when jobless claims fall to below 300,000, you know that there is a strong labor market, or at least it's yet another indicator. Labor force participation, the employment population ratio, all of that stuff matters too. But you know that this is, if all of this is coming together in one big, beautiful pie of solid economic indicators, then you know you're at a tight labor market. This was not moving quick enough for Donald Trump's reelection prospects. So if you're a Trump supporter out there, I'm going to tell you why this is a very good report. We could theoretically get back down to that threshold in a few weeks. Now, that's rosy, absolutely. But theoretically, at this pace, if we're going to see a giant decline like we saw this week, 1 week, because this is the lagging data, always lagging. Some of the report, the top line lags a week. Insured unemployment lags 2 weeks. Most long-term unemployment is lagging jobless claims data, which is why we label it as such on People Spend It Daily. All right. What does that mean? It lags 2 weeks, long-term unemployment, insured unemployment. All right. If this is going to continue in the right direction for Donald Trump to be able to make the argument, and you saw the Biden-Harris ticket come out yesterday, swinging on the economy, and Harris, who's going to be the attack dog, clearly, and that's why media won't let you attack her, because she's going to be the attack dog, and they're going to try to surround her like a bunch of bodyguards. All right. She came out and she said, like everything Donald Trump touches, that he destroyed it. And she tried to attribute the economy to Obama's administration and Biden's administration. It's ludicrous on its face. It's ludicrous when you dig into the data. The jobs data is not attributable to Barack Obama. We've done shows on it. I could do a show on it again. There's so much to talk about. Under Barack Obama and Joe Biden, falling unemployment was a methodological gimmick. Labor force participation told the story. People were quitting on the American dream. They were quitting on the integrity of work. They were collecting government welfare and social programs, and they were not counted in the employment situation report we all know as the monthly jobs report. Under Donald Trump, millions of people started dumping government assistance programs, re-entering the labor force. Job openings were through the roof. And manufacturing employment alone was at the highest level since the WTO was the World Trade Organization, since we began to hollow out our manufacturing industry in the Rust Belt. It's not even close to the same labor market. These were goods producing sector jobs, which is why wages were rising. Barack Obama and Joe Biden were producing part-time, low-wage jobs. Service sector, leisure and hospitality, garbage. Garbage. They were not real jobs to support your family. All right? It's a ludicrous statement. But that is the direction they're going. And I know a lot of Democrats who say this is a bad idea. This is a bad idea because you're taking the risk of the economy rebounding, or at least really popping back right before the election, and you'll look foolish. This report is a pretty good indicator that this could actually happen. It's telling me that the attempts by Democratic governors and mayors to slow down the recovery by using stay-at-home orders or, putting a pause on reopening can only do so much. That one of the major problems here was the damn provision in the CARES Act. Like I told you, this was going to happen. And I had people arguing against me who I knew, and I'm not going to embarrass them, but I knew damn well they were doing what I said millions of Americans would do. And then they would tell you that that's not going to happen. The economy is going to rebound right away. Don't make a big deal over that provision. It's going to. Meanwhile, they're not back at work yet. They're taking the unemployment benefits instead of going back to work. They'll go back when they absolutely have to, when it's an absolute must. The amount of dishonesty during that debate I saw out of some people, folks, made me want to vomit. Fighting two ideologicals, from the left, they just want Trump to fail. They don't give a damn how many tens of millions of Americans they hurt. They don't care. They just want Trump to fail, and they want Biden to win, and whatever. They'll pick up the pieces of a broken labor market and a broken country later. And then you have some who are just so willing to jump on the Trump bandwagon. Anything he does cannot be questioned. It's always 4D chess. It's always a super smart idea. They were willing to push it as well. And in the end, you're fighting back off of both sides, and they're wrong. And then you painfully watch it for 18 weeks. You painfully watch what you damn well knew was going to happen. And now here we are. But the good news is, like I said, this gives me some indication that there is only so much. And that's the beauty of the American economy. That is the beauty of the American experiment, the resilience of the American entrepreneur. It's a sight to behold, folks. It's a sight to behold. It always has been. Any president, successful president economically, really understood that the genius had nothing to do with them or government. All they really had to do was just get the hell out of the way. Just get out of the way. And the American spirit will drive us home. It'll take us home. That's always been the genius of this country. And economics is all. It is. There is no American dream without solid economics. It's a huge part of it. There is no climbing up the ladder of hierarchy of needs unless you meet your basic needs. You cannot reach self-actualization until you have food in your mouth and a roof over your head. It's It's ridiculous. But anyway, the 4-week moving average came in at 1,252,750. A significant decline of 86,250. The previous week's average was upwardly revised slightly by 1,250. So no real big deal here. If next week these numbers come in again like this and we pop down in the 7s, you're going to see two things. One, Democrats completely melt down, because it means by September, mid-September, late September, we could conceivably be staring 300,000 in the face again, which was unthinkable to them just last month. And then two, you're going to see that 4-week average fall very quickly. And that's that bar here, of course, if you guys know. All right. That's the 1 year. Look at the year to date. That's nice. That dip at the end. Look, all I can tell you folks is pray to God this continues, because you can clearly see that right there in the last 3 or 4 bars, which are the last 3 or 4 reports. You can clearly see that this thing really started to stifle. And we saw it in the insured unemployment rate too, which I'm going to get to right now. It's just like, I got to tell you, it's put me in a good mood today. It's put me in a really good mood, because the last thing we needed to see was 1,150,000. That would be a catastrophe. And then there's actually other really nice golden nuggets in this report. All right. The advanced seasonally adjusted insured unemployment rate, which you guys know I'm obsessed with, took another dive to 10.6 for the week ending August 1st. The very first freaking week in August. I wonder what could be doing that. I wonder what we could attribute to that decline, folks. All right. I mean, look, I'm not trying to do this for an I told you so moment. It hurts when you watch this stuff and you know that you're right and nobody listens and you know you're right. And then you have to circle back. So you have to kind of ding them a little bit. So next time they think twice about it. Like, I don't know, maybe he was right. Maybe this is a bad idea. He was right last time. You have to do it. Not for your ego. It's not to stroke your ego. It's for the next time the crisis in Leviathan comes, because it will come. It will come. If you guys haven't read that book, Robert Hicks, Crisis in Leviathan, seminal work, it basically, the thesis is that, the government and the powers that be, the status quo powers, people who want control, they use crisis, and then when the crisis comes, they grab power, and when the crisis is over, there's always a little bit less liberty left behind. And they just keep coming, one crisis after the other, until their goal is met. And that's how it works. And it always, that when it recedes, when that power recedes post-crisis, it never recedes to its previous pre-crisis levels. So you have to ding these people, and you have to tell them they were wrong and they hurt tens of millions of people with their foolishness. So the next time it comes, and we're only talking about the economic cost, I'm not even dipping into the civil liberty cost. The next time it comes, you can say, I told you so. Are you really going to be this stupid again? All right. So anyway, down 0.4 of a percentage point from the previous week's unrevised rate. So that dive of 0.6 of a percentage point last week, that held. There was no pop-up. That's nice. All right. So we look at the 1 year. It's painful to even see that thing skyrocket, but that's at least headed in the right direction. The year to date, the insured unemployment rate hit the first high of the current crisis at 8.2%, folks. That's all. So we're coming up on that first pop high again. And that was for the weekend of April 4th. The all-time high prior to that was 7% during the very deep recession of the 1970s. And it was recorded in May of 1975. On April 11th, it rose to 11%. And then 12.4 on April 25th. And then we just kept going. And then eventually when we popped to about 17.1, that's what it was, on May 9th, it started to come down precipitously, and then Democrats and governors and mayors and Trump-hating Republicans like Larry Hogan in Maryland, who had no data to justify what they did, they paused the reopenings, they slowed it down, or they postponed them altogether, and we saw a very, very slow slug down that hill. Well, apparently, like I said, there's only so much they can do. This lags 2 weeks for these claims to drop below 1 million now to 963 by 200,000+. We're going to see that number come down next week. It's going to be beautiful. Anyway, under the Trump administration, this rate had fallen to an all-time low, 1.1%, and remained at just 1.2% weeks before the crisis, as recently as March 14. And that was before the mitigation efforts. The advanced number for seasonally adjusted insured unemployment came in at 15,486,000. That is a decline, and that's for August 1st. That's a decline of 604,000 people. That's glorious. The 4-week moving average was still, it came down 16,169,000, but that's a decline of almost 500,000, 454,500. That's a very nice number. We're headed in the right direction. Fingers crossed that this continues to go. Extended benefits were still available in all 50 states, Puerto Rico and DC. By the way, I will continue to highlight this. The Labor Department keeps saying in all 52 states. They have changed that 3 years ago, they would not have said that. They are saying now Puerto Rico and DC are basically being lumped up in states. So they would have said in all 50 states, the territory of Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia. But words matter and language matters. So now, and we're not playing this game. I'm not playing ball with this. It's 50 states. There are 50 states in the United States of America. There was a territory, and then there was the cesspool that is the District of Columbia. I'm not playing this game. Anyway, that's during the week ending July 25th. Extended benefits always lag even more. The total number of people claiming benefits in all programs for the same period fell by almost 33.1 million. 3,065,616 just from a week ago. I can't imagine what has done this. I can't, for the life of me, I can't get a grip on why all of a sudden these numbers are dumping like this. Again, Nevada, you're killing your people. You're killing your people. The insured unemployment rate in Nevada is 23.6%. Talking about that with Barnes on What Are the Odds yesterday with Barnes and Barris, right? He was saying the Nevada economy is depressed. It was booming before this and maybe a chance for a Trump pickup if he had a good election. This is what Robert's talking about. Insured unemployment is 23.6%. I don't even know what to say to that. You destroyed the casinos. You destroyed the hotels. You destroyed the leisure and hospitality industry. For what? To beat Donald Trump in November? Almost a quarter of the people in Nevada are in the insured unemployment rate. Why? So Joe Biden could be a transitional president? You couldn't beat Donald Trump on all the other things that you've been railing about for 3 years? You couldn't find enough people who thought he was a Russian asset, who were duped by the Russia collusion hoax? You had to take out almost 25% of the workforce? Puerto Rico, 19.1. Louisiana, also energy crisis over there. And now they're going to get hit as a lagging effects are going to hit them, because if people don't have money to spend, energy is just not going to rise. And that's why you see Trump coming out, by the way, the executive orders to loosen restrictions on the energy sector again today, which California is going to sue for. He's trying to give these people a little relief. New York, 16.5%. Good job, Andrew Cuomo, 65% approval rating. California, 16%. Connecticut, 15.3. Is Connecticut a hotspot? I don't remember that. Anyway, the largest increase in claims was Rhode Island, and the largest decrease was California. They're out of that. They were among the first to really skyrocket. So they're at the end of the rope here. They have nothing left to collect. Unless, of course, we're stupid. Which, don't put it past people. Don't you dare put it past people, folks. They may do it. They may do it. Don't give them too much credit now. I'm telling you, they could do it all over again. It's unbelievable. The level of stupidity. Our leaders are not smart people. So, do not put it past them that they could possibly re-implement the same policy that was causing this to be persistent. This problem, this long-term unemployment, be as persistent as it was. All right. Again, big beat. Forecast range. The low end was 1,050,000. It's a big beat, and it's good news. If this continues, wow, we got through the whole segment already almost. If this continues and we see another beat next, it doesn't even matter if it's a beat. If it's precipitously falling the way we saw it fall this week, theoretically, we could be approaching the threshold for a tight labor market in a matter of weeks, folks, in less than a month. In less than a month. That is rosy, but I've learned one thing under Trump and the Trump economy. Never say never. Never say never. I never thought insured unemployment would hit 1.1%. Never. I never thought it would hang at 1.2% since like April or May of 2018, whatever it is, and only come off of that 1.2 to dip back down to the all-time low at 1.1%. I never thought in that initial jobless claims could fall below 200,000 without labor force participation creeping up considerably. I just didn't see it happen. I never thought I would see almost 5 million jobs created in 1 month. Where you'd have to go back to the 80s under Reagan, where he had back-to-back just under 1 million. That was considered gangbuster, and it was. I was thinking maybe, and you guys can rewind the tape. It's the tail of the tape, folks. I can't hide from it. What did I tell you? If we were in August having 1.5 million months, then we were looking at, we were looking at a race again. But this persistently high insured unemployment number was a problem. And now we're starting for the first week since we're looking at the first final week of the plague of the stupidity on the CARES Act, not impacting or not artificially inflating these numbers, not incentivizing people to stay home. Like I said, many of the people who would tell you in this industry that that was not going to happen, they did it their damn selves. All right. Anyway, moving on. It is 10:27 already. Laura's running a little late. She just dinged me and she wanted me to tell you guys that she will be back to basically harass me to answer your questions. But she is running a little late. Had to run an errand and hit some traffic on the way back. But I know she'll be barging in any minute now. Okay. So there's that. All right. And then also, if you didn't watch What Are the Odds yesterday with Barnes and Barris, we did a marathon, folks, didn't we? I see some of you that are in here from last night. That was a marathon. It was like almost 3 hours. But it was a lot of great questioning, a lot of great discussion. And we are almost done with figuring out. It's just a matter of figuring out. Like we're gonna go with the GoFundMe thing, and then we're gonna have links in there. You will be able to look at the questionnaire. It'll be really cool. And then, of course, there will always be ways to contact me, whether it's on the show here, on What Are the Odds, on Wednesdays, or on Twitter, whatever it may be, where you can give me suggestions, and then we'll see. I get some great ideas from listeners on questions to ask. But right on. One thing about GoFundMe is that there's a lot of room, so I could give you a lot of information. All right, and then we'll go from there. And I'll give it a couple of weeks to try to get to that magic number. I'll do it for nothing, so and we'll try to get to that mark. If we don't need it, wind up just giving it back. But or we'll probably do something that's just not as, I don't know. I'll leave that up to you. Majority wins kind of thing. All right. Maybe we'll do like a state, or instead of doing the large idea that we have. So what Robert and I would like to do is go, like we talked about yesterday, right after those states that we think will decide the election. And it's not just a matter of whether or not it's those particular states in that area of the country. If we do 4 to 6 Rust Belt states, and we get a large sample, and we drill down the way we're talking yesterday about drilling down into specific demographics, oversampling them, not overrepresenting them, just oversampling them. So we can decide, we can correctly identify that a student is not a non-college educated white. All right. I mean, this is the kind of traps these pollsters fall into, among many other things. Those states will tell us enough about other places anyway, as long as we get large enough samples. So I've long thought that this thing could be ended early in the Rust Belt, or it could be made to go on late until the next day, or now Democrats get their way, days, weeks. I've always thought that was the region of the country where it was going to happen. All right. And that's what we're going to do. All right. So there it is. All right. I already see. I need to know the winning lottery numbers. I don't have that for you folks, but I do have the spiel at the 10:30 break here. So, and I'm going to start, you guys see the countdown thing? I'm going to do that at 10:30 so I could give myself like just a minute to like drink a sip of water or something. I'll literally do like a 30-second countdown. And then on the hour, we'll do the normal break. All right. But that I thought would be a good way to pause for me to get like a sip of water or something. It's 30 seconds. Let me get some coffee, whatever it is. I'm not a huge fan on Inside the Numbers of eating and drinking. It is not professional on Inside the Numbers. You know, what are the odds I'll drink coffee or something on that? That's like a little bit more of like a discussion show. It's different. But on the Inside the Numbers, we have structured segments, and I'm not a fan of that, as some of you may know, right? So, and you know who you are. So, I'm going to do this little 30-second routine. I want to pop a Nicorette in my mouth, or I want to drink some coffee or something. That's what that'll be from. All right, but it is 10:31. So, look, don't forget to like the page on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube. You guys are doing great with that on YouTube. It's becoming its own like animal thing. It's starting to just kind of snowball, right? It's doing its own thing. I think I heard Madam Producer come in. I think she's coming. All right, so you'll have her soon. But anyway, yeah, it's doing its own. That's great. Keep it up. We love you guys for it. That's awesome. You guys can, of course, follow us on Twitter if you don't already, at PPD News, at peoples_pundit, like it's right on there on the screen. But the subscriptions on YouTube, phenomenal. Keep it up. It's the rate I care about, keep it up. That's wonderful. And ultimately, the best way to support the show, you guys want to look at the graphics like we just went over, economic indicators. We have series indicators on, all the economic calendar stuff that what I show you on the show. You can do that if you want. Subscribe to PPD. That's the best way to support us. You can go to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. Like the subscriptions on YouTube, actual subscriptions, like, paid subscriptions on People's Pundit Daily have bumped up since we started the show. And we love you for it. That's great. I'm getting requests for merch. Listen, I don't think I'm there yet, folks. I really don't think so. I got to tell you, let me see if another few thousand on there that watch it the way you guys watch it. And maybe then we'll talk about merch. But we could do like coffee cups or something. I was thinking that'd be all right. But I don't think we're there yet. All right. So one step at a time. You got to crawl before you walk. Baby steps, baby steps, baby steps to the door, baby steps to the microphone. You guys remember that? We were talking about What About Bob yesterday. Bill Murray, I probably agree with him on nothing politically, but the guy was one of my all-time favorite comedian actors, and he was fantastic. Baby steps, if you haven't seen it, oldie but goodie. All right, give me that 30-second break. I'll be right back. We'll talk about Kamala Harris and the media's coverage of her and the handicap. We'll get into seconds. Just some funny stuff. Let's just laugh a little. All right, 30 seconds. All right, so that was an epic fail because I'm like, where's the water? Where's the 30 seconds goes by real quick. Holy moly. All right, so of course we all know this week that Joe Biden made history by picking Kamala Harris to be his vice presidential running mate, the first vice presidential nominee ever to be denounced by her own father. All right. And the media rushed to surround her like bodyguards. And if you've, wanted to ever see what the media handicap looks like, this is a good week to demonstrate hashtag media handicap, hashtag media handicap. All right. Because that is what you're seeing live. It's playing out right now. There are a few things. Now, we went over that outline yesterday that the liberal groups, everyone from NARAL, Planned Parenthood, former Hillary Clinton people that, sent to media saying, we will declare these things off limits. If you, cover her incorrectly, we'll call you out on it. You will be a sexist, a racist, a misogynist, et cetera, et cetera. And as I'm thinking about this, there was an article that M. Joseph Shepard, maybe some of you guys follow him on Twitter, wrote for PBD a while ago. I mean, it was when Kamala Harris first announced her presidency. Okay. And I remembered something because we went over the lynching act that she was trying to push because she has no major legislation to speak of as an accomplishment in the U.S. Senate. She has done nothing, right? She's an IOU senator. And so she wanted the lynching act to go through so she could say that she had an accomplishment when she was running for president. And of course, her advisors, I'll at least give them this, they understood that you cannot win a Democratic primary without black support. And that was the goal here, was to kind of jam black support. Of course, that didn't happen. History, we all know, she never got above 7%. She never even made it to voting. Voters, look, let's not play semantics too. On Twitter, I got to respond to these ridiculous people. Voters did reject Kamala Harris. If you don't make it to a freaking primary, you've been rejected. Are you joking? Wow, voters rejected her? I don't remember voters voting on her. Yeah, you didn't because she quit. Because she was pushed out before she was embarrassed. They decided maybe we could ignore the early states. And we'll just make it to California. But then Bernie was going to kill her in California. So she quit. If you don't make it to voting because you're never going to win anything, you've been rejected by voters. Some ridiculous crap people come up with. I swear, it's really something else. I mean, come on, playing semantic games here. Really, you quit because you didn't make it. That's what happened. Okay. So anyway, yeah. So clearly, these rules come down. We can't talk about Kamala like this. We can't criticize her on that. I immediately flash back to Joseph Shepard's column. And if you guys saw a little glitch right there, it's because I switched. I still had Wi-Fi on. So I went from Wi-Fi to hardline. All right. Let's pull this puppy up and read this because it's going to remind you of the lynching act. It was right around the same time. And then we're going to play some clips from the media. And you tell me if M. Joseph Shepard wasn't right on the money. And I'm probably going to read the first half of his article first, and then we'll do the clips, and then we'll do the second half of his article because it asks a question. So he's posing a question. What is the impact? What impact would a president, Kamala Harris, be on dialogue in this country, on race relations, on feminism? And it's funny, a white male's asking these questions. I know that's probably not allowed, but it is on People's Funded Daily. All right. And basically, think about what you've heard in the last 48 hours. He actually uses to Obama as a little bit of a guiding post here. And then what happened with Obama, how the media reacted to Trump's election, and what we would be in for if we did this again under somebody like Kamala Harris. And it still is relevant because, of course, we all know that Joe Biden is not lying when he says he'll be a transition president. He probably won't even make it past the first term. I don't think probably. He will not make it past the first term. And Kamala Harris will, in fact, be president. Yesterday, the betting odds after this announcement, they had their first full day of this announcement. Kamala Harris's betting odds as the president rose by the same percentage that Joe Biden's did almost. Trump was heading back up to like a 40%, and then it dipped him down to like 38 again. But Joe Biden only increased by 1.1%. Kamala Harris increased by that other 0.9 of a percentage point. They were 0.2% off. Everybody knows a majority of Americans don't believe Joe Biden's going to make it. So yes, it's still relevant. Let's take a look at this article, all right? Great article. If you guys haven't had a chance to read it, it's in the YouTube description for the show. It is an older article, so you'd have to search for it. But Kamala Harris, a disaster for race relations and feminism is the title of the article. God, you hear those warplanes? They're glorious, aren't they? The sound of a warplane above is a U.S. Army soldier's dream. Here comes the question, Nazi. All right, she's coming. She's setting herself up. All right, so anyway, President Kamala Harris, a disaster for race relations and feminism. And this is M. Joseph Shepard. If you guys don't follow him on Twitter, I do. We retweet each other sometimes. But, you know, he'll write. He writes for the Recovering Liberal is the name of his blog, Recovering Liberal. And he writes for PPD. He'll contribute opinion columns. And here's one of them. Race relations after 8 years of Barack Obama's presidency, which augured so much for that aspect of his election, were arguably in no better shape in 2017 than they were in 2009. It might be said the most obvious manifestation was the rise of Black Lives Matter movement in 2013. Hardly a sign of progress. There is a case to be made that the Trump administration has achieved more racial harmony overall, despite obvious setbacks like Charlottesville. Black unemployment has fallen to the lowest rate in history. That was when it did. President Trump has pardoned and commuted the sentences of historic and current high-profile figures who have been wronged, like Jack, right? Like Alice, and passed bipartisan criminal justice reform legislation, the First Step Act. Such progress has seen a corresponding rise in President Trump's approval rating, and he means with Black voters, with polling averaging 16% in one study, a 100% increase over his actual 2016 vote. Much of the analysis of Trump's surprising, to the pundit class, election victory focused on supposed white resentment of minorities, unquote, as a driving factor. That these same supposed resentful whites had twice voted for Barack Obama before turning to then candidate Trump belies the basic concept, no matter the implausible liberal analysis. But it would be foolish to put aside the whole argument, as race challenges have, of course, not vanished from the American scene. Given there was a degree of white resentment, then what might have been the cause? Is it fair to consider that the same condescension from the liberal elites to the white working class and its economic and social concerns also led to whatever degree of racial resentment may have been present? This condescension was made strikingly clear in the near automatic response from the progressive left to any criticism of President Obama. It's because he's Black. Why are you afraid of the scary Black man in the White House? Or some other endless variation of the same theme. If you criticize Mr. Obama, then you clearly are, or at least at heart, a racist. 8 years of that endless theme being the immediate answer to any and all attempts at dialogue surely contributed to any reasonable person feeling that the left was using an unanswerable cudgel to stifle genuine dissent and concerns. A Kamala Harris presidency would lay the groundwork for a deeper sense of white resentment, as the left would double down at that theme. You are not only a racist, but a woman hater. Worse, a Black woman hater would immediately appear in all possible variations. The effect on whites would be compounded after having experienced the same brand of attack under Obama. To have it doubly rendered under Harris would breed a dangerous racial, social, and intergender environment. That is not a matter of any conjecture. And I will just say this, folks, whites are the swing vote in this country, or at least the majority of them. It is true that they helped propel Barack Obama to the White House, and he did better with white working class voters than I think exit polls showed either time. And obviously, or would not have won states like Indiana or North Carolina, even though we know what happened with North Carolina. But in the end, he did better than those suggested, and yet still, in 2016, with the right candidate, many of them voted for Donald Trump after twice supporting Barack Obama. All right, so it is absolutely a possibility that some of those voters, or the more educated vote that, were like Romney voters and McCain voters, it is absolutely possible that those voters vote for the Biden-Harris ticket. Let's, for hypothetical reasons, say they win. Biden, after 6 months to 18 months, falls off the map. The media stops lying about his conditions, and Kamala Harris takes over. And it becomes like what Shepard's talking about here, hyper, only in like overdrive. And then 4 to 8 years later, the situation is even worse. Race relations are really bad. This is the argument he's trying to make. And I'm saying that from a psephology point of view, it's absolutely possible. It's the old American pendulum. The electorate, it's like a pendulum. Swings back and forth. And we could end up with a lot more resentment than the so-called resentment that they say led to the election of Donald Trump in 2016. And that, look, before we even finish reading the rest of his article here, let's take a look at some of these clips. All right, because we read you that article the other day. We read you that what they had sent to media outlets. And there are a few things that are clearly off limits. We're not allowed to talk, like Robert pointed out yesterday. We are not allowed to talk about how Kamala Harris got her start. I have told you guys, I don't think it's wise. If you want to have a discussion, there's plenty. There's plenty to talk about that's a matter of policy and that impacts people's lives. Do I want my daughter growing up to be like Kamala Harris? Putting ambition before, morality, with her own self-respect? No, I don't. But I also don't think that's how you beat her electorally. I just don't think Americans care about someone's personal sex life. Not the Americans that Trump campaign has to persuade back. There's a lot in that bag. There are a lot of bombs in that bag, in that baggage. Like I've been saying, it's not really necessary. But we're not allowed to talk about that. We're not allowed to talk about her. A big one was her heritage. So the media ran when she was, look, this is, talk about semantic games. When the media covered his official choice, okay, it was history made the first African-American woman to be named on a presidential ticket. Folks, she's not an African-American. She is an Indian. She is an Indian and of Jamaican descent. Does that make her less of a black woman? No. But it is fair to argue whether or not the characterizations of her being an African-American, it is fair from an analysis point of view, because the media's argument and the Biden argument and everybody who's supportive's argument is that it will gin up black turnout, that Biden was going to have a problem ginning up. I'm not sure how a Jamaican Indian who isn't by her own admission, not a Christian like those communities are. Those are Protestant black churches and communities. I am not sure how someone, unless you lie about her heritage, unless you're lying about her heritage, I'm not sure how that's going to gin up those people. Say, like, you know what? She's one of us. She's one of us. I just don't see it. And now, not only can you not talk about it, but you're a racist if you talk about it. It's unfair. It's sexist. It's racist. This is not something that the left on their own networks has not discussed. Here's Don Lemon making the argument himself that Kamala Harris is not an African-American. She's black, but she's not African-American, and it's incorrect to characterize her as such.
Number one, she is a black woman. She's a mixed race woman. When you see her blackness, but she is also South Asian. Her mom is South Asian and her dad is Jamaican.
April, let me listen.
Yes.
More power to her. And I think it's great. That should be enough. Listen, it is enough that she's a black woman.
We are not a monolith.
No.
Exactly. But they did the same thing to Ted Cruz.
No. I think you're not hearing what people are saying. The people who are saying is she black enough, that's bull. That's BS. But to want a distinction to say is she African American, or is she black, or is she whatever. There is nothing wrong with that. There is a difference between being African American and being black. Latino people are people of color, but they're not black. They're brown people.
She is a woman of color, but she is a black woman.
Okay, that's why I agree with that. I agree with that. But is she African American? No. But is she African American? There is a difference. There's nothing wrong with that. No one is trying to take anything away from her.
Let's go down into her lineage.
I think you're falling into the trap of that. All she had to do was say, "I am black, but I'm not African American." That's it.
Don, I think there's actually a trap. I'm not falling in. Let me finish. Hold on. I'm not falling into a trap by that. When she goes down her lineage, many Africans landed in Jamaica and all these other Caribbean islands. So she could indeed
Jamaica's
be
not America.
African American mixed with other races, but she is
Jamaica's not America.
But she is a black woman. She was born
did not
here.
Come out of Jim Crow.
Okay, well let's go into Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz was born in Canada.
Ted Cruz.
His father
this is
was
not
Cuban.
about Ted Cruz. You're changing the subject.
But you know what? We can.
All right, there it is. There is nothing wrong with pointing out that Kamala Harris is not African American. Don Lemon said that himself. That's Don Lemon. It's not taking away anything from her blackness, but they're trying to say she is African American because Joe Biden specifically has a problem with African American voters in urban America. Many of whom, by the way, like I said, these are socially progressive, or not even, I would say social justice progressive Christians, okay? Social justice progressive Christians. They are not Jamaican Indians. But the media wants to do that because they want to have it both ways. They want to play it both. They want to play it to their full advantage 100%. Even if it's not true. That's Don Lemon who said that. Again, Don Lemon. There's nothing wrong with that, he said, with pointing it out. And then you see April have a complete meltdown like is happening now to other people who aren't named Don Lemon. This is crazy. I get very uncomfortable when like you're boxed into this thing where you're not allowed to discuss what's like factually true. The New York Times headline, the CNN headline, false. First African American to be appointed to a presidential ticket, to be nominated for a presidential ticket. False. Which is why I make the joke, and I'm being funny. I'm trying, I'm kidding around, but it is true. What she's the first Indian and Jamaican candidate. What's wrong with saying that?
Not good enough.
Not good enough. It's not, because it's not targeting the voters they need to target. That's exactly right. It's not good enough. Really, like I said, I'm joking. I'm saying really should make history as the first candidate to be denounced by their daddy. And for that, if people don't know what I'm talking about Kamala Harris's father when she went on the Breakfast Club, I believe it was, and they asked her if she had smoked weed. And she said, like, joking, "Oh, you kidding me? I'm Jamaican. Like, I toke all the time." It's totally ludicrous, so fake. It was totally ludicrous and fake, which her own father pointed out. Like, that is not only insulting, but she's a liar. It's insult. I am an educated Jamaican man who did not raise a pothead Jamaican daughter. Like, this is a stereotype that should be sickens us as the family. It's insulting to the family. It's insulting to Jamaican people. You're playing to a stereotype. And he called it basically one of like the worst examples of racial identity politics. But there you have it, Don Lemon himself. So why is it racist or off limits for anybody else to bring it up? I'll tell you what, you better get a name right too. People who have watched Tucker for years know that Tucker Carlson, I just said it wrong, Tucker Carlson has been pronouncing her name wrong for years, right? For years. Kamala, he's been saying. Kamala Harris, and I'm going to play the clips here. I'm going to play several clips to make a point. He's been saying, it's like they don't know that this joke of a so-called columnist for the Washington Post makes a fool of herself and writes that Tucker's a racist, basically. And that's why he's doing that. And he's just an angry white man who can't face that he's going to have an African-American female president or vice president, right? Which is crazy. I mean, which is, of course, crazy on its face, folks. But if she wasn't an ignoramus, silly little knee-jerk overreacting liberal, she would know to do, you know what, let's just take a second and do some research here. Tucker has been saying her name like that for, I mean, it was clearly that was the way Tucker had been pronouncing her name. But now CNN flipped out. They flipped out over it. They pay somebody to watch Tucker's show, he says. You know what? Let's just roll with the first thing. Here's the first night, and Richard Goodstein is on. All right? And Richard's going to be the, he cares about Tucker's reputation. He cares about the reputation of other hosts on Fox News and other anchors. And he just wants to let you know this is how it's really pronounced, because they could come after you for it, rightfully so, rightfully so. So I'm just looking out for you because I don't want you to be perceived as a racist white man who's just angry and can't pronounce a black woman's name right. This is what happened. Here's the first night.
Tucker, can I just say one quick thing, because this is something that will serve you and your fellow hosts on Fox.
It'll serve you and your fellow hosts on Fox.
Tucker, can I just say one quick thing, because this is something that will serve you and your fellow hosts on Fox. Her name is pronounced comma, like the punctuation mark la, Kamala. Okay? Seriously, I've heard every sort of bastardization
so
of
what?
that. That's how it is, Kamala.
Okay.
Well,
but
I think it's out of respect for somebody who's going to be on the national ticket. Pronouncing her name right is actually not, it's kind of a bare minimum.
Disrespect.
I wanted to be the last person in the room before he made important decisions. That's what I asked Kamala.
Oliver Darcy goes to Twitter. This guy's a total joke. All right. Matt Bevin, just like completely from Real Clear Politics a couple weeks ago, they were talking about, look, Biden's hiding from the debates. He doesn't want to debate Donald Trump. His people don't want him to. They're afraid he's going to like pop a blood vessel on live television on his eye and be like, what's wrong? What's wrong? You know, like they don't want that to happen. And this hack writes, oh, this is only a right-wing conspiracy. And Matt Bevin puts together this collage from CNN of all these like so-called analysts and experts, really like making the case that Joe Biden should not debate Donald Trump. Such a joke. We have the same kind of thing happen here, but Oliver Darcy comes out complete with condemnation. Tucker responded to this last night. All right, because some of these shows I'm just not going to gratify, by playing. So let's let Tucker respond.
On the world today, they wanted you to know that someone out there had mispronounced Kamala Harris's name.
I want you to listen to how Tucker Carlson, the best he could do was to somehow mangle her name. Listen.
Tell Kamala Harris what to say, and she will say it. That is the whole point of Kamala Harris.
I call him Schmucker Carlson, but it's an ethnic term, so he might not understand.
But then at the end, it's laughable because he's like, or whatever. So it's like, no, it's not whatever. It is about you having to finally face what you have done to this country, to black people, to black women. There's nothing or whatever about this moment.
I actually try not to play that tape like that very often because it's not edifying, and those people are so personally unhappy they're already suffering. But this was just too amusing, so we had to. By the way, all of CNN turned out last night to watch the show. One of them, who's paid by CNN to watch this, alleged a conspiracy. He tweeted that, "We claim this was unintentional, but our show often does mispronounce the names of people we're critical of. It's the sort of thing on his show. It seems pretty intentional!" Exclamation point. Then a senior political analyst at CNN even claimed the pronunciation was an attempt to play the victim in the story because Kamala Harris, quote, didn't appear on the scene yesterday, whatever that means.
So you guys get the point, right? So they're gonna do what you did to this country and black people in this country. What did Tucker Carlson do? What has he done? I don't understand that. And it's okay, by the way, to say Schmucker Carlson. That's all right. So let me get this straight. Let me just make sure that the rules of engagement, I understand them correctly. You can absolutely make racial slurs towards whites.
Of course.
Which I also could be taken, by the way, against Jews. You could do that. So anti-white, anti-Semitic, that's all cool. But God forbid you don't pronounce Kamala Harris's name correctly. You're in deep trouble.
I wanted to be the last person in the room before he made important decisions. That's what I asked Kamala.
That's exactly how Tucker Carlson said it. That's Kamala. I mean, and by the way, he's been doing this for years. Again, I mean, that's what I had to start off by saying. He has been doing this for years. I mean, folks, is it any more? Could you get any more laugh? Could you be any more of a joke? Really? The big media.
I say Kamala.
I mean, it's just what it always is. Big media hate machine, pushing hatred, pushing division, right? Mm-hmm. It's just what it is. That's what they do. Running interference, the handicap. Folks, it serve you well. These two, big media hate machine, media handicap. Big media hate machine, media handicap. That is the only thing they do in this country. They don't report news. They fuel hatred. They are the biggest force for division and hatred in this country. And their other role, of course, is to elect Democrats and serve as the opposing party during times of electoral decimation of their party. That is their role. Their role is not people who report the news. It has nothing to do with journalism anymore. And just look at, the jobs thing we went over, Laura, when you were gone, how they reporting this job stuff. Jobs numbers still weak. The story is that the jobs numbers fell precipitously. The initial jobless claim numbers fell precipitously because the stupid CARES Act expired. All right? Anyway, we'll be back in 2 minutes, folks. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Thanks. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. Follow me on Twitter at Peoples_Pundit right there. Don't forget to like the page. Like the page. People's Pundit Daily on Facebook. And subscribe to the YouTube channel. Ultimately, the best way to support the show is to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily, which you do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. When we come back from the break, we'll read the rest of M. Joseph Shepard's column. Ask ourselves, it was a great column. If you haven't read it, you want to read over it again, go to PPD, check it out, or check out the YouTube description in the show, and you will see the link for it. I mean, really, he nails it. He nails it. It's a great column. Immediately watching this disgraceful coverage in the last 48 hours, it's all it popped back in my head. All right, here is Bad Habit by the Grammy considered Bowen Band. I'll be back in 2 minutes, folks.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
can get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear overnight, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
Cause I know that you know that I know that you own me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
And we're back to the break. All right. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barrish. You guys can follow me on Twitter if you don't already, at Peoples_Pundit. Like the page on Facebook. Subscribe to the page on YouTube. You guys are great. We love you for it. Keep up the good work. All right. Let's get to this column. Finish. Wrap it up. Let me read it out to you because I think it's prescient. And then on the break, the madam producer, the question Nazi, said we have to start questions early because she had so much that we missed yesterday. So that's cool with me. Let's do it. All right.
You have no choice.
All right. We have no choice. All right. Yeah. So where were we? Right. So every single response to an actual attempted dialogue under Mr. Obama was, of course, you're a racist, right? And what would it be like under Kamala Harris? Not that you're just a racist, but you're a sexist. You're not only a woman hater, a black woman hater, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we're seeing that. Yeah, we're seeing that. What's that movie, Johnny Mag or what? Johnny, right? Mm-hmm. Where is he plays Split. And then the other one where Glass, where he's the kid. He's got split personalities, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I'm talking? Yeah, like, you know, et cetera. All right. So he says, the effects on whites would be compounded after having experienced the same brand of attack under Obama. To have it doubly rendered under Harris would breed a dangerous racial, social, and intergender environment. This is not a matter of any conjecture. Within days of Harris formally announcing her campaign, progressives commenced to meet, and he's got quotes here. You ready? Voters who might choose Jolt over Kamala Harris, do we need to spell it out for you, might make a different choice with Bernie Sanders or Sherrod Brown on the ballot. That was when, by the way, Howard Schultz, CEO of Starbucks, was thinking about making a run, and Democrats were having a meltdown because he was going after potentially black voters, like Tom Steyer eventually did, and that it could peel off some vote from the Democratic nominee. And because they thought it would be Kamala Harris at the time, then you were, of course, a racist in the Democratic Party itself if you chose anybody but Kamala Harris, their own voters. And Kamala Harris called the Democratic voters racist herself. I'm not sure this campaign is going to be successful because I'm a black woman. Well, you're talking about Democratic primary voters. So you're saying Democratic primary voters are racist? Yeah, that is what you said. And again, I am worried about the inevitable sexist and racist attacks Harris will probably endure during this campaign. Simply existing as a black woman ensures that Harris is constantly under siege, unquote. Harris tweeted her clear intent to make racism a major focus of her campaign and presumably her presidency. Quote, let's speak an uncomfortable but honest truth with one another. Racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, homophobia, and transphobia are real in this country. Did you get every single one of them? Did you make sure you didn't miss anybody, did you? Back to quotes. They are age-old forms of hate and new fuel. And we need to speak that truth so we can deal with it. Some of this is going to sound familiar if you watch the episode when we went over the anti-lynching legislation. And before any corroborating police investigation, Shepard says, she called the alleged attack on Jussie Smollett a modern-day lynching, unquote. A modern-day lynching. And then the tweets here. We read this to you the other day. He's one of the kindest human beings, honest human being, whatever she knows. I'm praying for his quick recovery. This was an attempted modern-day lynching. No one should have to fear for their life because of their sexuality or color of their skin. We must confront this hate. How convenient. This fake hate crime, this hoax, was perpetuated once again, another hoax perpetuated on the American people, while Kamala was trying to pass anti-lynching legislation because she had no accomplishments in the legislature to speak of and had no justification for running for president. Amazingly, this hoax gets perpetuated as she's trying to push this thing through the Senate, which, if you guys watched, like I said the other day, you know I went through the empirical evidence. I myself was curious as to why they would possibly be pushing such a divisive bill. Where were the lynchings? One would have to go back, Shepard says, to the 1948 Strom Thurmond-led states' rights presidential campaign to see such an overt and preposterous, if not genuinely frightening, appeal to the basic instinct in race relations. Quote again, lynching is a dark and despicable part of our nation's history, yet it is still not a federal hate crime. Passing a federal anti-lynching law must be a priority for this new Congress, unquote. That's Kamala Harris. How such statements can possibly indicate a Harris presidency would commence a new era of mutual respect for all and allow for an unfettered dialogue between opposing points of view utterly escapes me. And I'm going to stop here. Is that the goal, though? I mean, really, though. I mean, this is what Mr. Shepard, he is assuming, of course, that the goal should be a new era with mutual respect for all, unfettered dialogue, because, of course, we have the First Amendment in this country. We have freedom of speech in this country. We're a country that debates ideas.
We do.
Opposing points of view. But, of course, is that really the goal of the modern left anymore? Is that the goal? So is the goal really to just give these allegedly oppressed groups in the country a seat at the table so they can have mutual respect for all, or they can be shown mutual respect for all, and we can have an unfettered dialogue with each other? Or is punishment the goal? Or is a simple, something a little bit more basic and a little bit more frightening, a sea change where those they feel who have oppressed them over the years are now subjugated like they feel they are and were? So that may be Mr. Shepard's first mistake, is that Kamala Harris is a goal. Yeah, this is and Laura's jotting down over there. I didn't oppress anybody. I don't oppress anybody. I don't know. And did you hear that pundit on CNN? When she was reacting to Tucker Carlson, she said he's going to have to answer for what he did to the country, what he did to black people. Was Tucker Carlson a slave owner?
No.
Was he even the descendant of slave owners? Because Kamala Harris's family was.
Where's her reparations?
Where's her bill?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe he was. I don't know. Maybe he is from a descendant. So I sure as hell not. Millions of Americans, ethnic Catholics of all descent, way beyond that. What is she talking about? What you did to black people? Kamala Harris has slave owners in her lineage. I don't know what the hell she's talking about. Anyway, back to Shepard's call. The only recent recorded case, which you guys know, Michael McDonald, because we went over this. The only recent recorded case of lynching was a random attack in 1981 for which the perpetrators were tried and executed. According to the Tuskegee Institute, there has not been a lynching in Mississippi since 1955. Certainly a formal apology is required from Congress, but this is a law in search of victims, and as such, hardly a priority. I will just say this. As you guys know, the case of Michael McDonald in Alabama, of course, we went over this. The perpetrators were, in fact, tried and prosecuted and convicted. They fried that man, the ringleader, in the electric chair. The old man was going to get it too, but he dropped in court and later died of natural causes because he was so damn old anyway. It was the first lynching of a KKK leader. I mean, the first execution of a KKK leader in the state of Alabama. If anything, the tragic case of Michael McDonald showed progress, true progress in race relations in this country. Didn't have to come to that, sadly. But 6 years earlier, if you want it, the reason why, by the way, the Tuskegee Institute goes back to the 50s is because before Michael McDonald, the last lynching was in the 70s, and it was of a Polish white Jew in Michigan. He was lynched by young black men looking for a white person to lynch, unquote. So I'll get to the question, so let me wrap this up, all right? So it really is more than what Shepard is saying here, although, like I said, I think this was a really prophetic column. I really do. But it was more than a law in search of a victim. It was a law to be a justification for a woman who had no legislative accomplishments, or a lawmaker. Sorry if I'm not allowed to use the word woman anymore. I'm not allowed to point out her gender. It's the same thing with Bernie. He hasn't done squat either, because Bernie's not a champion. He's not a fighter. That's a joke. These people have been in the political scene. Harris is a little bit more recent. She just got in the Senate 4 years ago, but she accomplished nothing. And this law was not only a law in search of victims, it was a law that was pointless. And the only justification was to give her and Cory Booker something that they could run on, because they hadn't done squat. They're IOU lawmakers, which are lawmakers who vote on other people's legislations so they can have their, scratch someone's back. When the time comes, someone else can scratch theirs. That's how it works. That's how the status quo works. All right, hold on. Is this a question or a comment?
Comment.
Okay, hold on 1 second, folks. Dun, 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 dun.
You got it?
No, you got to do it. You got to. All right, hold on. There you go.
All right. My question/comment.
Question/comment.
What happened to the days when they had to have their own profession, and then they only got paid for mileage going back and forth?
All right, you're talking about the evolution of part-time legislators to careerism, career politician in the U.S. Congress. That should be, honestly, that should be an entire show. In Our Virtuous Republic, I did this. I spent an entire chapter on it because it is so important. Years ago, before the 16th and 17th Amendment, the log rolling deal, which talk about you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. The 16th Amendment, of course, and the 17th Amendment, of course, being the deal between progressive taxation being constitutional, because they needed a constitutional amendment to get that. Supreme Court kept striking it down because you might find this surprising. The original constitutional structure, they were not allowed to directly tax citizens. That only came after the log rolling deal with the 16th, 17th Amendment. They kept trying, and the Supreme Court kept striking it down. You cannot directly tax citizens under the original design of the Constitution as a republic. And then that log rolling deal struck at the heart of the republic, because that was not about only about taxation, but of course, state legislatures used to choose the United States senator from their state. The treason in the Senate was this like propaganda series of articles and columns that argued that corruption in state legislatures were picking the senators for the state, and that, of course, the only remedy was direct elections of senatorial candidates. We go over this in great detail, and I will. You know what? I need to put this into a show, a segment in a show.
Okay.
Because it was never true. Of course, there was always corruption, but they were actually pretty decent at policing themselves. The average tenure for a U.S. senator before the log rolling deal in the progressive era was less than a single term for a U.S. senator. And what that told you is, if the U.S. senator that was appointed was not doing what the constituency, because you're most closest to your state legislature, and then, of course, to the U.S. House district, right? So they were much more responsive and reactive to the needs of their constituencies. And if that senator wasn't doing what the constituency wanted them to do, the state legislature was going to hear about it. And they would recall these puppies. A lot of them never went back. Now, the average tenure for a U.S. senator is almost 2 decades. And it's crazy. It's like, well, it's like 12.4 as of 2014 or 16. But since that went up, after that, it's probably around 14 and a half years, 15 years. So that is, I mean, you can round up almost to 2 decades. Before, it was never like that, folks. People had been duped. They were duped into thinking that this system was a boys' club during the Gilded Era, and it corrupted it. And it was simply not true. And I plotted out on graphs, and I can actually show people the evolution of from a private, part-time citizen legislature to careerism in the U.S. Congress. And that was directly the result. And of course, what happened is it was really about lobbyists and rent seeking, which is the money that interest has to spend to get favored legislation. If you have to buy a new senator every 6 years, it gets kind of expensive. So if you can keep incumbents, then two things will happen. You won't have to keep buying them off. And because DC works by seniority, they'll become more powerful the longer they stay there, which can help them pass favored legislation. Theoretically, the status quo, my scratch your back, you scratch mine, with the IOU legislatures, legislators like Kamala Harris, I was just telling you about, that wouldn't work because the same people wouldn't be there all the time. So great work by people at George Mason at GW. There's tons of work on it. I talk about it extensively in Our Virtuous Republic. And I posted it. Yeah, did you? I mean, I wrote it years ago. It's very theory heavy, folks, and it's not like a book that you'll want to read if you're looking for a light read. It was a thesis and was expanded because I just wanted to write it. But it's got a chapter that's all about that if you want to know, and it's interesting stuff. I mean, it was a fraud. It was a total fraud. And the evidence, the empirical evidence, suggests it had nothing to do with one man, one vote, which was the popular slogan. It had to do with special interests wanting to consolidate power, and they were getting tired of buying new legislators as time went on. Very interesting period in our history. The progressive era was not progressive at all, with the exception of workers' rights, which was very sorely needed. We talk about that too. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, the progressive era was a fraud, and it resulted in a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with right now. Wealth was not concentrated in Northern Virginia and the DC suburbs and Washington, DC. It was spread all over the country. Something else we talk about. The Rust Belt, folks, had most of per capita wealth in the country. And that has been altered forever if we don't change it.
But
all right.
In the end, someone like Kamala would have never been elected for VP, let alone Senate.
Well, she would have never made it. Honestly, she would never have made it to the Senate because Barnes and I spoke a little bit about this yesterday, because there were competing machines. And at that time, her connection with one machine was already looser than it was before. And they would have basically wanted the approval of Dianne Feinstein. And if she was, she probably would have been, well, she could have acted differently. It's a hypothetical, saying all things being equal, then she probably would never have made it there. Many senators like Doug Jones, he would not still be in the U.S. Senate. The legislature in Alabama would have taken him back by now. The McCains of the world. Arizona would have removed him, folks. I mean, this happened. It happened a lot. And actually, what was great about that era is that party wasn't so rigid. So just because it was a Republican legislature did not mean that a Democrat wasn't going to U.S. Congress. A lot of times there were business Republicans, America First business Republicans, that would choose what was like the remnant of the Bourbon Democrat, a free market, per individual liberty Democrat that had no more home in the Democratic Party. It was a different era. It was the way the founders designed it on purpose. They weren't trying to take your vote away. They knew that you had to live your life. And in the book, in Our Virtuous Republic, I call it rational ignorance. It's not that you're stupid or we're stupid. We're busy. We're living our lives. And the founders understood that. We did not have time to dig. Every citizen and every voting citizen did not have time to dig into these issues, who these people are. We just didn't have that time. We had to support our families, raise our kids, build careers. So it's called rational ignorance, and they prey on it. All right. But yeah, that's a whole other discussion. I got to get these numbers up. I got the graphs. They're just not loaded in the thing. You guys, you probably would love this discussion.
We'll make an episode of it.
Yeah, we'll make a segment. We'll make a segment of it. All right. So, all right, let's get some other questions in here. Okay. Let me shut myself up.
All right, Ashwin.
I'm sorry I killed it. Go ahead, do it again. Sorry.
Okay. You sure?
Your mic's not on.
You're not doing it.
Try it again.
I see. Hello.
I don't hear her, folks. Do you hear her?
Somebody watch.
Is your plug out?
No, sir.
All right. Let me swing the mic over to you, and then you
I got it. Can you hear me now?
No.
Really?
Really? Here. Let me just swing the mic. I'll turn it around. Swing it to you.
All right. So.
Wait.
Okay. Better.
Speak into the microphone.
Speak into the microphone.
There you go. Now I can hear you.
All right. Cool. Sorry for that, folks. All right. As promised, Ashwin, you're my first question. You have been saying that Trump is strong in PA and Michigan. Does that mean he is leading there now? Swing it on back.
Swing it on around. Michigan's a little bit different. In truth, the way Michigan worked for us in 2016, you're not going to know until the end. So the Democrat in our polling, it was Hillary Clinton back then, but I saw why. It was a little new to me back then. So I was like, some things were still a question for me. But there were these groups of working class independents who are not as big as a percentage of the electorate as you will see in like Wisconsin, for instance. All right. But they really took forever to decide. And the constituencies that are decided, there are more for Democrats than there are for Republicans. So if a Republican is going to carry that state, it's going to be because at the last minute, he or she wins over enough of that electorate that whenever, the undecided vote goes down to like 2%, 1%, I'm talking about at the very final stretch here. The Republican will take a very, very slight lead. That's how Michigan works. All right. Now, there have been instances with like Snyder and stuff, but that's a gubernatorial race. It's really not the same thing. All right. So that gap closes a lot later than other states. And Wisconsin, that'll also be the case because they have a larger percentage of those votes. There are just not as many Democrats as there are in Michigan. In Pennsylvania, it's much. Well, this is what I can tell you where finding. I think some other people are making some serious mistakes by thinking that the suburban population is going to be half of the vote or more. That's crazy, folks. It's never been historically the case. At best, 42%. So that 8% miss can change a lot. If the election was today, I actually think Trump would take Pennsylvania by about 1 point. Even though there are still those undecideds. He's carrying independents, and I can't speak for other people's data. He's carrying independents by about 5 points. That is only 18% of the electorate, but it's still 1% more than he got in 2016. He carried them by about 4 points. The polling that I see in public polling, I see something that jumps out in Pennsylvania immediately. That's a red flag. And this is consistent for us. He carried the low teens of crossover vote for Democrats in 2016. 185,000 net Republicans have made gains in registration over there. So I can understand some of them being Democrats that switched to Republican. So maybe that will be a little bit less this time around. But I'm confused by some of the polls that show Trump's carrying like 4 or 6% of the Democrats. That tells me one thing. They have completely missed a huge constituency that makes up 54 counties out of the damn state. So while a large chunk of the population vote as a percentage of the population, and the percentage of the vote is of course going to come out of Philadelphia, there are still 54 counties that are classified as Appalachia counties. Those white Democrats, working class Democrats, voted for Trump very heavily. That's how Erie County went 16 for Obama and Biden to 2% for Trump. That's how Luzerne County became a competitive county. That's how some of those, the West in general, the western part of the state, because you're very northwest, Obama did well in. Like I said, the very northwest county is here. It's 16 points he carried it by. They're missing those people. They're just missing them. And Barnes and I spoke about Wisconsin yesterday. You talk about Polk and Rusk and all those areas. They're not getting those. And you can't consider responses that you think are working class, non-college educated working class. If you got them on the edge of the Milwaukee suburbs, you cannot extrapolate that data. And because you didn't get enough responses out in Rusk. It's the same thing in Pennsylvania. And I really think that's why you're seeing those low crossover votes, because that really has not disappeared in the state of Pennsylvania. The only thing that's changed is that some of those Democrats simply registered Republican now, but it's not as many as you would think. So, and like I said, the independent vote is going 1 point stronger for Donald Trump. That's why I said recently, if I believe that it would probably be Trump by like 1 or 70,000 votes. That's what I think when you crunch the numbers. Of course, Democrats will take the next 2 or 3 days to find absentee ballots and provisional ballots all over the state. Not all over the state, in Allegheny County and in Philadelphia. And that's why they want these ballot pools, because they know on the election day. I have spoken to so many people in Pennsylvania. Democrats themselves think Trump is going to be leading in Pennsylvania on election night, and that they got to get it through absentee ballots. That's what they think. All right. So, and it's not just me. Wisconsin and Michigan will break late is the answer to Ashwin's question in full, just because we got to wrap up all those states. That's why I want to do the Rust Belt Battleground poll, Ashwin. That's why we are focused on that area of the country. The Rust Belt Battleground poll, which I'll have the GoFundMe page for you guys soon. The Rust Belt Battleground poll will tell us so much about even places we're not going to poll. They have constituencies that will tell us whether or not Donald Trump's going to hold the presidency. And they'll decide late, so it needs to be a tracker. All right, let's get the next question from Laura. Let's try your mic again, Laura, okay?
Well, they said they could hear me anyway.
They can hear you?
Yeah, they said so. All right, Brian. No, not Ryan. Sorry, Evan Bliss. How vulnerable are Steve Daines, Joni Ernst, and the 2 Georgia seats?
That didn't change. That didn't change. Joni Ernst, I don't think is that vulnerable. I just don't. All right. Who was the other one? Georgia. One of the Georgia seats could be a bit of an issue, but that would have to be an incredible election for Democrats. Daines was a representative before he became a U.S. Senator. Montana is an at-large state, meaning the district is at large. There are no carving. It's not carved up. He had a base of support, which is why Steve Daines was always going to do better than his polling indicated, even when he ran the first time. So when you're a congressman, you get a get out the vote base of support. It's very difficult to overturn. We saw this too, folks. If you remember, we had the Republican congressman, body slammed the guy from BuzzFeed News. He still won the election. The polls showed the Democrat could eke out by 2 points. It didn't happen. John Tester is something else. He's another animal. He has been very, 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 very smart. It's a different animal. Steve Daines is, I think that's Democrat. What's the word? That's real wishful thinking. Mm-hmm. It's real. There are people who are in trouble. Susan Collins, of course, is in a tight race. I think she's going to outpoll. She was popular years ago, and it's hard to knock somebody down that much. It just is. All right. And Maine liked her. She's very tailored for Maine. All right. And but it's still a tough race. Jones is going to lose in Alabama. So that's it. McSally is in the fight of her life because she's just not a good candidate. If Trump does carry Maricopa, he may drag McSally across, but he better carry it by like 5 or 6 points. So if she trails him by like 3, she could still eke out Maricopa, and then Kelly will fall short. I've been telling you guys that. The polls were gross in 2018. They're getting worse as time goes. By the way, they were gross in 2016 too. They just keep getting worse as time goes on. All right. I showed you the vote Maricopa the other day. I showed you the voter file in Maricopa the other day. The poll that just came out had Biden winning Maricopa by 8 points. Maricopa is R+4. And the amount that he would have to win independence by is ridiculous. What they are doing is extrapolating the state margin of an independence to each county. You cannot do that. Independents in various counties are different, and they vote in different ways. And that makes up the entire state. I'm telling you, I'm highly skeptical. I was talking to somebody about doing some polling in Arizona. I don't know what's going on with them. But I've been leaving it open. I'm not going to poll it out of the kindness or goodness of my heart. That's not going to happen. But I'm skeptical of it until I have my own data. I've been screwed there before by public polls. And I'm not going to let it happen again. And, so that's that. Then you have Cory Gardner. He's probably one of, if not the most vulnerable Republican incumbents in the state of Colorado. He performed quite well among Hispanics, especially even younger Hispanics, but working class Hispanics and middle class Hispanics in 2014. This one may be a bit of a different election. Again, a lot will have to do with how Trump does, at the presidential level, because we do see such a strong correlation now and such a low ticket split percentage. He drugged some people across in 2016. He could hurt them if he loses in 2020. We'll just have to see. I think, though, Cory Gardner's, demographically, Colorado is tough. He's in a fight. All right. What's the next one?
Your next question is...
I can't believe they can hear you and I can't.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Dan Silverman. So Trump has Ohio in the bag, right?
Yeah, I don't think, look, folks, I don't think Ohio's competitive. I just don't. I know I'm going to be at odds with public polls. I tell you not to give yourself, if you're a Trump supporter, do not give yourself a coronary over these early polls. If you are a Democrat, check your hubris, check your overconfidence, because early polls have no predictive value. That's even true even into September sometimes, depending on the election year. The bottom line is demographics tell the tale. The polls were worse in 2018 in Ohio than they were in 2016. They were, even though Sherrod Brown did hold on, he certainly didn't win by 18 points like USA Today said. He barely won. And he would have lost if Josh Mandel was the man he was facing instead of Jim. And then, of course, Richard Cordray led in every single poll going in, except for one blip, the Marist poll, which we talked about yesterday on the other show. The Marist poll had him down by 2 in July. They quickly herded, never had DeWine up again. And DeWine not only won that election, he won it kind of handedly. Democrats made no gains in the state of Ohio, barely anything, in an election that was like D plus 10. And one, they took the House back. Ohio, Florida, these were states where Democrats, they poll great and they don't perform. And they made, in a very good election cycle, they made almost no gains. I just don't see it. I'm not going to I got screwed in Ohio myself, or I screwed myself in 2016. That working class vote, if you are not getting them, I'm not talking about on the edge of Franklin. You know what I mean? I'm talking about deep in Appalachia in the Southeast. They're hard to poll. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want, right, Laura?
Right.
We got some funny recordings. You'll get that academic, that loves, oh, yeah, I got 20 minutes. I'm doing nothing. I got 20, 25 minutes to talk to you. And then you'll get the worker who just got off. He's out of the coal mine. He's exhausted, right? He's exhausted. He just, man, I want to eat dinner.
And a beer.
And I want to have a beer. I want to eat dinner, have a beer, put my feet up, watch the damn game. I don't want to talk to you, right? So it's hard. And demographics say everything. So There's just not. Even if turnout among blacks, Laura, is higher, among African Americans in Cuyahoga, she still would have lost that state by a significant amount. Not even close. All right. There are just some working class, traditionally Democratic neighborhoods that are not going back. They're just not. There's no evidence there all. And Ohio is too white. It's just too white and too working.
Right.
You know?
I got your next question.
Go ahead.
D has a lot of questions actually. D311. How does he think the $400 per week from the executive order is going to affect the unemployment rate once people start getting that? Yep. And I'm an HRC to Trump voter. How many left to right voters like me does he think there will be in this election?
You are the voter. I mean, I don't mean to are you a woman? Is she a woman?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. Especially if it's a woman. You are the voter. It has to think about, really, because there are really two groups of people that Obama won that Trump carried in 2016 that shocked everybody. And in the craziest way, I guess it's the way Trump campaigned, how he geographically campaigned. They're those working class, and they're men and women, but they are working class, like the traditional definition of working class. And then there are female small business owners and professionals that voted for Obama.
She is a woman, and she said the riots pushed her over the edge.
And this is why I'm not for nothing here. I'm simply saying, and I don't mean this, don't take this the wrong way, but there's something about safety issues with women that, would have voted for Biden until they don't feel safe anymore. And then they're like, you know what? Trump is just a tougher guy. But this is why Trump is really flirting with disaster if he doesn't try to do something more. I've always said there's more risk. I know the Democrats are trying to bait and goad him into doing something and overreacting in Seattle and Portland, right? But there's always a bigger risk to break your promise to voters. There's always a bigger risk in that. And if you don't make voters like her feel safe, then they get complacent. And they think, you know what, I just don't want the boat rocking anymore. Things are all right. I'm not in danger. I'll vote for Biden. They have to kind of feel like they're at risk. I'm not trying to be delicate here, but it's true.
Women like to feel protected.
It happened, and it happened in 2004 to John Kerry. And they targeted voters just like her. And they thought it was I don't even know, over almost 3.5 million of their targeted vote that they were trying to get out. And they were like, yes. And on the exit polls were showing, they got him to the polls. John Kerry was going to win. He was even going to carry Ohio by 5 points, folks. That's how bad exit polls have been in the past. And then when the vote started to come in from Florida to Ohio, and then the end for him was Iowa. All right. It was pretty clear. They got those voters to the polls. They just voted for George W. Bush, and they got the nickname National Security Moms. That's what people started to call them, because they felt like Kerry would not protect them from terrorism, and he wouldn't have. But George Bush made that case. This is the opening. This and schools are the two issues that are the opening for Trump with those voters, because there are a lot of voters like her that have slipped, though. There are. And he's got to get at least he's got to outperform with that working class vote again. He broke Reagan's record, but he could do better. He's got to, by getting more out, and he's got to do that. And he's got to win back voters like her who have kind of slipped to Biden. Let me just as a question to her, if possible.
Okay.
Before the riots and everything, was she flirting with voting for Biden? Can you ask her that, or she's hearing me now?
She's listening to you right now.
Yeah, she's hearing. I'm curious on that answer, because that is what we see a lot of. We see a lot of that, and now they're either back into the undecided column, which is why you'll see Biden go up and down, folks. But you're really not seeing Trump move up that much. So maybe he'll go from 40 to 42 in some of these polls. And the difference between the 10-point Biden lead and a 3-point Biden lead is really that Biden just went down from 52 or wherever to 45, and Trump's at 42. So it goes to being Biden plus 3. And you're not seeing Trump get up out of that low 40 range. That's because those people went back into the undecided category. And they're not really like, all right, I'm done with Biden, I'm going with Trump, and I'm stuck here. So Trump's got work to do there. He absolutely has work to do. And by the way, there's a lot of these voters in Wisconsin, but too. A lot of these, especially female voters in Wisconsin. He's got work to do with them. He does.
All right. Dee said, I watched some videos of him with the little children and it really disgusted me. So I was going to vote third party. Can't blame you, sister.
You're going to vote third party. She was going to throw. Yeah. Those, you know, the third party thing, there are people really pissed about Kanye West, Laura. There are people, I'm not even joking, that are white liberals speculating about, you know what, when Biden wins, can't we prosecute Kanye West for election fraud? I'm serious. They're spitting that around. When Biden wins, isn't it possible we could put him in jail for siphoning off a few points? You know, and there will be other people on the ballot. It's just they're not as well funded this time either. And then they're not getting the media coverage because in 2016, the media admitted at least that Hillary Clinton was unpopular and disliked. Just not as much as Trump, but she still was unpopular, or at least in their polls. In our polls nationally, she wasn't as disliked as Trump. He was more disliked. But the battleground polls, especially in the Midwest, Ohio hated her. They hated her. So did Iowa. We could go back and look at something. They were not favorable to her at all. And it was like that national number was being skewed because you had her very liked in New York with a lot of population. You had her pretty much liked in California. She wasn't disliked. Now, Joe Biden is not particularly well liked in the state of California, not like some of the other prior candidates. He's just not. So it's possible that he doesn't squeeze as much votes out of California that she did. Who knows with this election, though, and mail-in votes? Who knows? Because I think they know that too, which is why they're pushing this crap, right? And by the way, Hillary Clinton was a senator from the state of New York. So that lopsided vote in New York probably is not going to be something Biden can count on either. But again, they're counting hundreds of thousands of ballots that don't have signatures. So who the hell knows? Might as well run it like they, you know what pisses me off too about the media class? Every time there's an election in Russia, they start accusing Vladimir Putin of fraud. Vladimir Putin wins by such a big margin. Why the hell would he need to engage in fraud? It doesn't even make sense. And by the way, independent polling too has shown he's really popular. It's not just like in Moscow and in the big areas. He's super popular in rural Russia, and it's a huge percentage of the country. They love him out there. They love him. And we have some nerve accusing him of committing election fraud, and others. We do it to everybody. Maduro, we did it to him too. We have some nerve doing that, Laura. When we run elections the way we run them, fraudulently as hell, just no election integrity whatsoever, supposed to be the beacon of democracy, we have no right to wag our finger at anybody or hurl accusations at anybody. For Christ's sake, the intelligence community falsely accused the president of the United States of being a traitor. All right? I mean, come on. Come on. All right, next question.
Irish Girl wants to know, where do you guys think the unemployment percent will be by election day?
Well, that is the question, Irish Girl. That is the question. If he can get below 7%, which is possible, if these claims continue to precipitously fall, and by the way, let me piggyback off the other question about his executive order. There may be a period in between to answer that where people could not rely on those benefits, so they had to go back to work, which there is at least some evidence that that could have happened. That's what we would need to get below 7%. And we need to keep going like this. That's why this jobs report is a great report that came out today. It is, because it shows at the rate of decline that we're seeing, it is possible we get back to that threshold. These are lagging reports. And even some of the newer reports right before the monthly jobs report, the employment situation by BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they always lag and miss a reporting period because their survey ends on the 12th. So that this was on the 8th is a big deal. And then the lagging data was the 1st. It shows we could get a nice, solid report and potentially some solid revisions to the prior month. And if that's the case, you could see it drop this month to like 9, and then you got another month after that. If he can get to 7, if it falls like that, Laura, and then he could honestly make the case, why the hell would you take a risk? We built the best labor market in the history of the country. He always says the best economy in the history of the world. I'm not going to give him in the history of the country. I'm not going to give him that. But I will give him that it was the best and tightest and strongest and highest demand labor market we have ever seen. It was.
Well, you don't fix what's not broke.
And you don't, and that is his argument. We're about to do it again. Look, we're about to do it again. Don't touch anything. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Joe Biden killed it the last time he was in the driver's seat. He'll kill it again. And by the way, the objective analysis of that, folks, if you're a Biden voter and you're like the one we had before on, you should know. I mean, look, I don't care if you like Donald Trump or not. I'm not trying. I'm just simply telling you the objective analysis. The economy will be hurt. It will. You're gonna hurt. A vote for Joe Biden is a vote to hurt you, unless you're like a defense contractor, someone who benefits from warmongering, and someone who benefits from government contracts that don't help the private sector. So unless you're like one of those, unless you're like Northern Virginia, DC, or Silicon Valley, you will be economically hurt by a Biden plan, because his plan targets the changes that were made the first 31 years, the first overhaul. His plan targets the things that are driving up wages and the things that are causing goods producing sector to pay out higher wages to workers. That's why non-supervisory workers, their wage gains are outpacing their bosses. And if Joe Biden's plans are enacted, that will be reversed. That's why there was no wage growth under Barack Obama. And his plans are worse than Barack Obama. At least Barack Obama kept the damn payroll tax cut, right? I mean, all right.
Small wins.
Small victories.
All right, Debbie Tyler, realistically, how many Republicans House seats do we have a chance to win in California?
Realistically, right now, look, I would have said like 1 or 2 before Mike Garcia, but that Mike Garcia win shocked the hell out of me. I was even thinking, because of turnout differentials, Laura, maybe he was going to take it by like 2 points. I thought he was clearly a favorite, though a slight favorite, and he blew it out of the water because he won independence, which includes, by the way, performing very strongly among those Asian Americans that used to be split a swing vote, but no longer are and have been trending heavily Democrat. There was no way he could have performed that well without doing well among them. He was the first Republican candidate out there to win the Latino vote. Yes, he is Latino. Maybe that has something to do with it. But there are now conceivably 3-4 seats. I'm being realistic. 3-4 seats that were more Republican than California 25. So that's the answer to the question. Realistically, if I had to say one number, I would say 3.
Okay. Bryce Patel, what are some of the swing counties nationwide that can give us an indication of how the race will go?
That's a great question. That's right up my alley. Oh, I love that. Okay.
So keep it into 2 minutes.
Pinellas County is the new Hillsborough County in Florida. All right. That will be number 1. Ironically, DeSantis and Scott both lost Pinellas by a little bit, but it can still, and won statewide, but it can still tell us how it's going. And there are a lot of working class, formerly Obama voters that flipped and went to Trump, and they are swing voters. So Pinellas County, the media will harp, folks. The media will harp on Hillsborough because it used to be the bellwether county in Florida. It is no longer the bellwether county. There are too many liberal Puerto Ricans there to be a bellwether anymore. So it votes Democrat. Pinellas County is the new bellwether in the state of Florida. That will be, and I know Laura's going to tell me to keep this short, that will be the very first county I will look at. All right. Macomb County, when results start coming in out in the Midwest, look at Macomb County. Biden's going to carry Oakland. It's how much Trump can fight Macomb to a draw or even a slight win to be able to offset some of that if he's running up margins in the upper peninsula. Okay. Kenosha County in Wisconsin. traditionally red, but has been drifting to the left a little bit. All right, that's another one I'm going to be looking at. And not just who's winning it, but the margins. Arapahoe County, all right? That's how we're going to start getting out west a little bit more. That'll be some of the areas we're looking at. Maine, by the way, the 2nd congressional district is going to tell us a lot. And that's in the Northeast. It will report fairly early. That'll tell us a lot. So I will put together, that's worth putting together a list and putting a graphic up and saying, this is where to look. Ignore the freaking media. This is where to look. And Florida specifically, because Pinellas could go a couple of points either way. In Florida specifically, Collier County, their vote share compared to 2018 is what I will be comparing, because if they do dip Trump and the Republican ticket dips a little bit in Pinellas, in Monroe, Collier County went gangbuster in 2018. And I think some of the people just moved there, Laura, and they offset the loss. And they still carried it. It was shocking. I'm getting the graphic. Look, she's barring me. All right, she's William barring me. She's reclaiming her time. She's reclaiming Luzerne County in Pennsylvania. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh.
Montgomery. All right, good.
DC Perspective wants to know, doing some reading, why is it that when any demographic turns out higher rates, they're represented more, except for white people? White representation in council decreases when more whites vote. He thinks that's odd.
Well, is he talking about the media coverage or just how it is perceived? Because this harkens back to the 2012 election too, where the media story was how Latinos flexed their muscles and reelected Barack Obama. It had nothing to do with Latinos voting. Mitt Romney could have won 70% of the Latino vote. He still would have lost. All right. Black women specifically. Black turnout has been increasing more than other demographic groups. But whites in 2016, Democrats believed would fall to about 66 to 65% of the electorate. That's their rosy day. That's what they want it to be. And it didn't happen. So, demographics aren't always destiny is my point. So is the question though really about why it's not focused on, or why it looks like they're unrepresented in the actual what Census Bureau comes out with? Because later the Census Bureau will come out with their stuff. And it's also true, by the way, that again, even when the Census Bureau does their stuff, Laura, later, they have just as hard of a time reaching that white working class than we do. And by the way, that's why Obama performed better than a lot of these other polls, and even some of the exit polls in 2012 suggested he would. He did better among the white working class. They just don't talk to people, folks. They don't talk to people. They don't want to talk.
All right. Well, we'll get back to that when DC replies to your question.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering if is it about what he means, like when the census comes out and does their post-mortem, yeah, or is it what the media's coverage? Because the media will never tell the story of how white working class outsized themselves or outsized their expectations in 2016. They're just never gonna do that.
We got 6 more questions.
Black turnout still rose, by the way, in 2018. Still did.
Vincent Locker, I think that's how you say it because I knew about Bobby Locker in Jersey. Do you have any thoughts about some of the horse races? In particular, I'm wondering about VA7.
Spangelberger. Yeah, so the deep state Democrat who defeated Dave Bratt, right? Virginia 7, and Barnes and I were talking about this yesterday. That's a district that, all things being equal, a solid candidate can beat. She doesn't have strong power of incumbency yet. It's a more conservative district traditionally, and that was Eric Cantor's district, and David Bratt beat him. But in the end, we don't really know the question to that yet. I mean, the answer to that question yet. We just don't. There are some things you guys should expect and should know if you're Republicans. The Republicans nominated some real doozies this time. All right, they nominated the weaker candidates in a lot of races. Like I spoke about Michigan 8, in a lot of the races that should have easily been won back. So that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to lose. Like I still think Washington's up in play. I mean, really, I mean, that was not, and Pete Sessions' district. There'll be some like Will Hurd, and that will be hard because they liked Will Hurd. So, I mean, there'll be some to hang on to. And that's why the media thinks that Democrats are such an overwhelming favorite to hold. House races, though, folks, there are always these races that come out of left field that nobody sees on their radar, and they come out of nowhere. I just think Virginia 7 is like one of those districts where it has been changing. It's not a great Republican challenge. And that poll the other day, by the way, in North Carolina 11 is a joke. Meadows' seat is not up for grabs. All right, it's a joke. That's not going to happen. But not a great Republican candidate, and their bench was not strong, and they picked a lot of bad candidates. So if they don't make the gains that you would expect, there is always some recovery from a first-term incumbent midterm blowout in the House. There traditionally has been. Even Democrats got some back in 2012. If there's a lessened recovery from that, it's a combination of all of those factors. Like Michigan 8 Laura should be gone. That should be gone. Slotkin should have no chance. But they picked Paul Young. I mean,
all right. Justin Baker, is Kanye West going to do anything to the vote count?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, some Democrats are really terrified that Kanye West is going to pull 2% of the black vote out in Wisconsin. If you take 2% off the top, if you take a bunch out of Cuyahoga, I mean, that's a problem, a real problem. And in real tight, if you would have done that to John Kerry in 2004, then George Bush probably would have won Ohio by 3.5, 4 points, but he didn't. And he got it, So that he's a problem. There are Democrats. I am not kidding when I tell you that there are Democrats talking about if Kanye really, even if they win and Kanye ended up being like a spoiler for them in some states, that they're going to make an example out of him and teach him a lesson. Like, never try to do this again. The black vote's ours. You try to run and pull 2%, 3% off the top, we're going to bury you for it. Like, they're going to there are people talking about making a case against the guy. I maybe shouldn't even be saying this because I'm going to scare him out of the race. He may get off the ballot.
All right. So Lamb Crow wants to know, thoughts on Israel and UAE normalizing ties. Trump just announced it. Does it help him?
So when Trump does stuff for Israel, all right, the real political, why it could be politically advantageous, it has nothing to do with the Jewish vote. The Jewish vote is largely liberal in this country because they don't identify as like Israeli Jews. They identify as secular liberal Jews. Think about like the liberal Jewish reporters at the New York Times. Like, that's how it is. What this does do is shore up evangelicals. All right, that is the constituency that really moves based on or against, based on whatever the actions and policies are toward Israel. They feel a closer connection to Israel than even, what's the word? Ethnic Jews that aren't faith Jews or religious Jews. So that's what that, I'm not saying that that's the goal.
No.
I'm saying that that's the impact. And there has been some slippage among evangelicals, but that may have been over when Biden decided to pick Kamala Harris as the running mate.
All right.
One moment to wrap up.
No, you got 3 more.
It's 12:03. I got to get going. I'm serious. I do. I know, but I got something. I got something I got to do.
Sir J. Cat, is there any potential for Trump dragging a GOP Senate candidate over the line in a state other than Arizona in particular?
Yep.
And Tactics wants to know, have you heard of the Norpoth primary model? I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that. Last year, it predicted Trump would win based on the primaries 86% of the time. This year, it's 91%.
Yeah, Barnes and I talked about that a little bit yesterday. Look, the models are absolutely, and I mean real models. I'm not talking about Nate the Slimer, the fake modeler. All right, the models are very much against the polls this year. Barnes and I spoke a little bit about it yesterday. Yeah, it's almost basically a shoo-in for him. But and then what was the first part of that question? Oh yeah, the Senate candidates. there are, like Cory Gardner. If he does better in Colorado, because it turns out that his Mexican working class vote did increase as much as some of the polls indicate, then there seems to be this thing with Trump where he gives more to the Republican coalition than the Republican coalition gives to him. That was the case in 2016. That was the case again, even in 2018. There were some Republican establishment people who abandoned some of the senatorial candidates that you would think they would like, but they abandoned. And the only reason why they held on or defeated the incumbent they were against was because Donald Trump actively helped and campaigned for them, right? So Cory Gardner is a big one. Susan Collins is another one because she'll outperform Donald Trump in like Portland and Bangor, right? But in the 2nd congressional district, she's going to need that turnout because those are also the areas that'll they'll go for the Democrat against her. If there's going to be someone who's going to abandon a Republican candidate first, it's going to be the Mitt Romney Republican. All right. And that happened in 2016 too. With several Senate candidates, Toomey almost lost because of that. There were voters who voted for him before that went with his Democratic opponent. It was only Donald Trump and his working class vote that drug Pat Toomey across the line. He owes everything to them, not to the Mitt Romney fair weather Republicans who abandoned them and the party because they nominated Donald Trump. All right. And yeah, so Susan Collins could be helped by him too, and so could Cory Gardner. Those are 2 races. And the reason why I'm focusing on them is because really, and by the way, John James, because John James is running a horrible campaign again. He's got a horrible pollster. I'm sorry. He's got these campaigns in Michigan and in other places. The vultures sweep in after someone wins the nomination. The candidate's got, a pretty nice sized war chest. The vultures sweep in. These are losers who are professional losers. They don't win campaigns, but they talk good. They got a nice silver tongue. They get the candidate thinking that they're the big guns, and they destroy their campaign. They're savages. They pick off the carcass of a dead campaign or dying campaign. And they have no intention of winning. They don't know how to win. And John James has had a lot of people around him like that now for multiple runs. And in 2018, he lost even though he outperformed Donald Trump in Wayne County. He lost because he did not get the Trump-sized vote or the Trump vote in other parts of the state, while his opponent did get Hillary Clinton-sized turnout where she needed to. So that's another example. John James is a very talented guy, very articulate guy, but he just doesn't seem to understand why Donald Trump won the state of Michigan, and neither do the people around him. That's for damn sure. And, so that's another perfect example. And the reason why I'm focused on them is because the constituencies, that's going to tell us a lot by how these people vote in Maine. And we're looking at white working class, right? Especially that independent working class vote. And in Michigan, same thing. But then you have Colorado, a state like Colorado, where it's going to tell us a lot about that independent Hispanic working class vote. Trump's never going to win the educated Hispanic vote, folks. It's just not going to happen. All right. Or he's not going to increase his margins that much among them. But I live in a development now where there's a lot of construction going on, right? Those guys, they love him. They love him. And they love him now that he's the only one trying to reopen the economy. They were pissed 2 months ago. All right. So that's the kind of thing you got to think about, And by the way, they're never picking up the phone. All right. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers, folks, with the People's Pundit. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. Don't forget, before you leave, subscribe on YouTube. You follow me on Twitter right there if you don't already, at Peoples_Pundit. And if you're Facebook users, which I know you are, don't blame me now, don't blame me. Roll on over to Facebook and like the page, People's Pundit Daily. All right. We neglected that for so long. I'm trying to do our best to bump it up into some reasonable numbers. We're in the news feed index. Facebook has us as a news publisher, but we don't have a blue check. And one of the reasons why they say, get more likes. We'll see how it is. So let's give them more likes and let's see what they say after. Let's see what the next excuse is, right? Anyway, don't forget to, you can follow People's Pundit Daily on Twitter at PPD News, at PPD News. That's the Twitter handler. The best way, of course, to support the show is to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily online, which you could do. Take the short link, ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. Tomorrow we'll be back 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It'll be Free Will on Friday, and I'm going to take a look. I love that idea. It's a great way to show you what I was going to show you anyway yesterday. We did New Hampshire on Wednesday's show on what are the odds. Let's look at Maine on the voter file tomorrow, and we'll have a Free Will on Friday where you guys can ask questions about anything you want. I'm sure something will happen today that'll take a segment. Plus, we have some economic stuff we can blow through. But I'm going to grab some of those pivot that we call them. And now Ballotpedia does too, which is cool. But we've always called them pivot counties. So they're counties, not that swing counties. It's just people were always using the word swing. We call them pivot counties. And we'll take a look at some of them, all right? And we'll take a look at why they pivot and why it really shouldn't have shocked people when some of them pivoted in 2018. But it's not a particularly great indicator for how they'll vote in subsequent presidential election, all right? So, again, thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, folks. All the best. We'll see you at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette.